The story they buried for 30 years just kicked the palace doors wide open, and Prince Harry never saw it coming. Because long before crowns, cameras, Netflix deals, or royal vows, there was a marriage that vanished, a husband erased, and a secret so carefully sealed it was never meant to breathe there again. Until now. And the name at the center of it all is Joe Giuliano. Chicago.
Meghan Markle's childhood summer boyfriend is speaking out in support of the Duchess of Sussex just ahead of her third wedding.
Looking at some old pics of her and her ex, a lot of people are starting to think so.
Everyone's just like, what? That first kiss? How'd that come about?
She's the one that made the move. I think it was probably a situation.
1994. Way before fame. Before the acting grind. Before the royal fairy tale. There was a relationship that got wiped clean like it never existed. A husband nobody was supposed to know about. A child left behind in silence while her mother chased the spotlight. A family that kept quiet for 3 decades. And a truth that's finally starting to unravel. Joe Giuliano wasn't famous. He wasn't powerful. He wasn't connected. He was a regular guy from Chicago with old school values, raised in a world where loyalty meant everything and family came first. The kind of man who believed marriage was permanent, promises were sacred, and reputations were built over lifetimes, not red carpets. He wasn't chasing stardom. He wasn't dreaming of Hollywood. He was building a future the way he was taught. Slow, steady, honest. And then he met Meghan.
Slowly, unease began to settle in.
Yeah, got it right. It's good to go.
The connection didn't creep in, it detonated. One of those instant, all-consuming sparks where the rest of the world disappears. The kind of chemistry that makes people rush forward without looking back. No breaks, no hesitation, just momentum. They didn't ask the hard questions. They didn't slow down long enough to wonder if they wanted the same life. Because in that moment, the feeling felt bigger than reality. But feelings don't build foundations. There was no engagement party, no family blessing, no long planning sessions or careful steps forward. Instead, they did something that should have raised alarms from the start. They went to Vegas, a fast ceremony, neon lights, fake flowers, a chapel built to process love like paperwork. Vows exchanged quickly, efficiently, almost anonymously, like the goal wasn't permanence, but speed. It was rushed, it was intimate, and it was the first crack in the illusion.
Ex haven't exactly been kind. Several people accused her of being fake and putting on a performance for the world.
When people skip family, tradition, and roots, it usually means one thing. They're capturing a moment, not building a life. But Joe didn't see that. Not then. For him, those vows meant forever. He walked out of that chapel believing he'd just stepped into the rest of his life. He meant every word. Commitment wasn't flexible to him. Forever wasn't symbolic, it was literal. But looking back, it's clear Meghan wasn't planning to stay. To her, this wasn't the destination. It was a stopover. Chicago wasn't the dream. Sunday dinners weren't the future. A quiet life with a traditional family wasn't the prize. Hollywood was. Fame was. Something bigger was calling, and it didn't include Joe Giuliano. His family felt it before anyone said it out loud. The Giulianos were old-school Italian-American.
Meghan wasn't looking for roots, she was looking for wings. Joe's parents grew suspicious when details of her
privacy, loyalty, reputation, problems handled behind closed doors, family above all else. When Meghan entered that world, she lit up every room. Magnetic, charming, impossible to ignore. At first, they were captivated. Who wouldn't be? But magnetism fades when inconsistencies start piling up. The stories didn't line up. Timelines shifted. Ages didn't quite match. Details changed depending on the audience. It wasn't one lie, it was instability, like watching someone constantly rewrite themselves mid-conversation. Some days she played devoted wife, other days she was already somewhere else mentally, chasing auditions, scanning exits, talking about Los Angeles like it was inevitable. Jay's mother noticed. She saw a woman physically present but emotionally gone.
Them attends an event solo. Then he asked,
So is that a good thing for you in a way that there's so much interest in you?
A wife already planning her departure. Everything Meghan talked about pointed west. Auditions, connections, the spotlight she believed was waiting for her. There were no conversations about settling down, building roots, or growing old in Chicago. Joe tried to straddle both worlds, keeping his wife happy while honoring the values he was raised with. But you can't build a life with someone who's already packing their bags. She missed holidays, skipped birthdays. The empty chair at the table became louder than words. The atmosphere changed. What started warm became strained.
City on Earth. a vision in papal white, lending her regal presence to France's famous fashion.
The family realized Meghan wasn't building a foundation, she was buying time. And just as the marriage was collapsing beyond repair, something happened that should have changed everything. She was pregnant. In most stories, that's the moment people fight harder, the moment everything snaps into focus, the moment a family pulls together. This wasn't most stories. There was no joy, no celebration, no excited phone calls, just panic. Because the timing couldn't have been worse. The marriage was already dead, and Meghan's career momentum was finally moving. A baby didn't fit into the future she'd already chosen. Behind closed doors, the conversations weren't emotional, they were strategic, controlled, calculated, damage control. The Giulianos believed in responsibility.
Morning, everyone. The world is waiting to see Meghan Markle marry her prince, with a couple selection of their florists this weekend.
In their world, you didn't walk away from your own child. But Meghan was clear. Chicago motherhood and Hollywood ambition couldn't coexist. She had already picked. And in that moment, Jay realized he was preparing for fatherhood alone while watching his wife plan her exit. This wasn't just a marriage ending. This was the beginning of a secret so heavy it would reshape lives, erase histories, and stay buried for decades. This was the moment everything stopped being about love and started being about containment. Because once the pregnancy was confirmed, the room changed. Not with shouting, not with drama, with calculation. Everyone involved understood one brutal truth. If this became public, it would destroy futures. Joe was preparing himself to become a father. Meghan was preparing herself to disappear. The Giulianos believed responsibility wasn't optional. You didn't abandon your own child. You didn't rewrite reality because it became inconvenient. But Meghan laid it out clearly. There was no room for compromise, no soft landing. A baby meant Chicago. Hollywood meant leaving.
Disaster that is Meghan Markle's as ever brand. You know, the one she said was all about authentic living, community.
And she was never choosing Chicago. So the conversation shifted from what do we do to how do we make this vanish? The solution that formed wasn't loud. It was quiet, surgical, ruthless in its efficiency. The pregnancy would stay secret. No announcements, no hospital photos, no public records connecting her to motherhood. The Giulianos would raise the child. They would become the parents in every way that mattered. They would provide the home, the protection, the love, the stability. And in exchange, Meghan would walk away clean. From the marriage, from the responsibility, from the life she never wanted.
The Giulianos maintain that their son has moved on and found happiness, but they worry about the broader implications of their experience.
For Joe, this was devastation dressed up as duty. He was preparing to meet his daughter knowing the woman carrying her had no intention of staying. He was becoming a father while losing his wife in the same breath. And there was nothing theatrical about it. No dramatic goodbye, just a slow realization that the future he believed in was never shared. When the baby was born, it happened quietly, almost invisibly. No crowds, no celebrations. No proud parents posing for photos. There were no public documents tying Meghan's name to that birth. No trail for journalists to follow. The delivery was discreet, controlled, and immediately sealed. She left before bonding ever had a chance. She didn't stay for sleepless nights. She didn't stay for first cries. She didn't stay. Instead, she gathered her things and headed west. Auditions waiting, opportunities calling, a future she believed demanded sacrifice. And the sacrifice wasn't hers alone. The Giulianos stepped into a role they never planned for, raising a child who would grow up believing a carefully constructed version of her own origin. They created explanations, shields, layers of protection, anything to keep the truth from leaking. This wasn't a casual arrangement. It was a lifelong sentence of silence. They couldn't speak freely. They couldn't stay rooted. They couldn't let friendships get too close. Because close relationships ask questions, and questions were dangerous. To protect that child from becoming a headline, they had to erase themselves. Slowly at first, then completely. The house that once welcomed neighbors went dark. Curtains closed. Conversations stopped. And then, one day, they were gone. No goodbyes, no explanations, no forwarding address. They didn't move like people relocating for opportunity. They moved like people fleeing discovery. The marriage was wiped away just as carefully. Quiet processes, clean breaks, no public fallout. No messy trail. Meghan needed a spotless record for the career she was building. No former husband to explain. No inconvenient history to unpack during casting calls or interviews. And it worked. Years passed. She reinvented herself. new circles, new image. Northwestern University, a refined public persona. The Chicago years quietly removed like they never existed. Her official story restarted later with different partners, different narratives, a carefully curated timeline. The Joe Giuliano chapter disappeared, but disappearing on paper doesn't erase memory. Joe never spoke, not once. Not even when the value of his silence skyrocketed. Not when fame arrived. Not when royalty entered the picture. Not when media outlets would have paid fortunes for a single confirmation. He protected the agreement. He protected his daughter. He protected the people who raised her. That level of restraint is almost unheard of. While the world watched Meghan rise, television success, red carpets, global attention, royal ceremonies broadcast worldwide, the Giulianas lived in deliberate obscurity. They gave up community, stability, familiarity, everything that made life feel normal, all to keep one truth buried. For 30 years it held. But secrets like this don't age quietly. They press outward. They create fractures. And time always applies pressure. The child grew up. She became a woman with questions no manufactured explanation could fully answer. Curiosity turned into insistence. Intuition started pushing against the walls built around her identity. And once curiosity meets access to records, technology, connections, silence becomes fragile. That's when the structure started to wobble. People who'd stayed quiet for decades began realizing the containment was failing. Documents exist now that didn't before. Digital footprints, paper trails, loose ends that can be followed. And once a secret child becomes an adult demanding answers, no agreement can hold indefinitely. That's the moment this story crossed a line. Because the pressure wasn't coming from tabloids. It wasn't coming from journalists. It was coming from inside the secret itself. The truth wanted air. A hidden marriage, a vanished husband, a child raised in silence, a family forced into exile to protect someone who walked away. And now that silence is cracking. Because you can edit your past, but you can't delete people. You can curate your image, but you can't erase consequences. The polished public narrative only works as long as no one compares it to the missing years. And those missing years begin in Chicago, with Joe Giuliano, the man erased from history, the marriage buried before royalty. The secret that blindsided Prince Harry because it was never supposed to exist. But secrets don't disappear. They wait. And when they surface, they don't whisper, they detonate.